What's good, y'all? Listen. I know y'all see the new spot, the new digs. Listen, we coming correct 2025 for the Lord, man. We growing the kingdom and we gonna be looking good while we do it, you feel me? But I ain't gonna lie. I told y'all, Bible Bootcamp, we running it up consistently. The art of endurance. Listen, we gonna get right into it. Ain't no point in waiting, you feel me? Ain't no point in waiting. So let's get into it.
D&D my telephone. I like to be drama free. Can't just live off bread alone. Lucy try to pop at me.
How do you handle our emotions and not letting your emotions handle you? You feel me? I mean, this video was really for me, that I'm gonna just go watch on my own little personal time, nothing crazy. But the biggest thing for me is that for a lot of us, we allow our emotions to control us instead of having our emotions be an indicator, right, of where we're at and how we need to move. Correct? So it's a really big thing for me. So I want to start off with this: protecting ourselves so that we can protect others, right? I'm gonna keep it a buck. When it comes to churches are where sick people go. We get that. The Bible has already made that clear, that that's where the sick people go. The problem is, for a lot of people, those that are supposed to be leading us, those that are supposed to be guiding us, are also themselves not wearing the proper protection. They don't know how to guard their heart. So when they're teaching us in churches, in many instances, we're not learning how to protect ourselves. All we're hearing is prosperity gospel. If you pray, God will give you $5,000. If you pray and you give me money for tithes, God is going to bless you specifically. And that's not a bad thing in some instances, saying if you pay your tithes, God is going to sow back into you. But if all you're telling people is if you pray and you believe in Jesus, you're going to get $1 million house, but you're not telling people how to protect their heart so that they can actually endure in the race in which God has called them to do, then you're not giving them any nuggets. What you're doing is placating them like, hey man, listen, you're getting them a sedative essentially. And that's not what God did not call us to give people sedatives to get gain out of them. He didn't do that, right? And so because of that, we have to learn how to guard our hearts. Because so many people in church are not properly taught how to guard their hearts. And when they're not properly taught how to guard their hearts, they're going to go hurt other people. And now, guess what? Now we have this perpetuation and this buildup of now what we call church hurt, because no one knows how to protect themselves, but yet they keep trying to sow into other people, right? And for a lot of people, it's just like, well, I care about this person. I'm supposed to keep working and reaching out and all this stuff to them in order to get to this space because God calls us to love them. But at the same time, as much as you love that person and pray for them, you can't get them to heaven. You, in your relationship with Christ can get you to heaven. Your relationship with him and following what he called us to do gets us to heaven. Now, obviously, having community and having people around us that truly care about us is an assistance and an assist to us getting to where God has called us to be. It's a build up and a stairwell and a staircase to get us closer to him. But if your entire focus is on building other people, but you're not actively working on protecting yourself and ensuring that your relationship with Christ is on a firm foundation, you ain't doing nothing for it, right? And that's something that I had to learn recently, is that for a lot of people, we don't know how to protect our hearts. Because in Proverbs 4:23, the Bible, I'm gonna give you straight Bible. I got my notes right here. I'm gonna give you straight Bible. You feel me? Above all else, guard your heart, for anything that you do flows from it. So if you're moving from a place of hurt because you haven't properly protected yourself, the people around you are gonna get hurt. Because if you protect yourself, guess what? You know how to tell other people how to protect themselves. And guess what? When we have people that are actively sowing healthiness into our communities, into our families, into our churches, into our friendships, guess what? We now are providing the body, the church, with the new lease on life as Christ had intended for us to have in the first place. If we're giving God our worst because we don't know how to protect ourselves, guess what we're giving people, right? Shout out Des. I had to steal that line from you. You feel me? But that's really a big thing for me. It's just like, how do we guard our hearts, right? And I didn't expect this video. I feel like this video is gonna be so long. And that's gonna be okay, it's fine. But how do we guard our hearts, right? And for me, it was more like it's so many people that I care about it and I want to see grow and this, that, and the third. But my question is, how am I supposed to protect myself and care for other people? And I'm gonna just be straight up. You gotta step back completely. Just take a step back and focus on you. Because for a lot of people, we deal with loneliness and anger and all of this stuff. And for us, a lot of times, we're like, well, I'm gonna just step back and be quiet, and step aside. And a lot of us do that out of a defense mechanism, not because God has called us to. It's kind of like when Elijah, self-isolated himself in the wilderness, essentially, right? Because God didn't call us to do that. But we did it to ourselves because we think it's helping us. And that's not the case at all. As a matter of fact, when you're protecting yourself, that means you can pray for somebody and love somebody from it. You don't have to be in their face to be like, I love you. I care about you. I'm praying for you. But you can be like, I have you on my prayer list, right? You can have them on your prayer list and focus on your relationship with Christ. And I think a lot of people confuse community with your relationship with God specifically, right? Because community is a part of your relationship with Christ. It's not one and the same, because you in Christ have to be locked in. And if you don't know how to manage your heart, you won't know how to manage community. You won't know how to take care of those around you. If you don't know how to protect your heart, you won't know how to be a husband. If you don't know how to protect your heart, you won't know how to be a wife. You won't know how to protect your children. You won't know how to be a friend, a sister, a brother. You won't know how to do any of that because you don't know how to protect your heart. Because instead of you going to Christ about the things that you need help with so he can dissolve and rebuild those things, you're running to self-isolate because you think you got it figured out. That's never how it's worked. It's never been how this has worked, right? And that's a really big thing I wanted to bring into our second part. And essentially, when it comes to protecting our heart, it all runs back to prioritizing our relationship with Christ, right? That's really what it is. It's like, to protect my heart, I have to run to God. I have to read my word. For a lot of us, protecting ourselves is more of a defense mechanism than us locking in with God, right? It's more like a let me isolate myself and figure it out. Even though our track record has shown that we don't know much at all, right? It's just like, I don't need God, I'll figure it out. Or I love God, but I'm gonna handle this myself because I know me better than you know me, even though you formed me in the womb and you know how many hairs I got on my head, how many freckles I got on my behind, you know all that, but I'm gonna just self-isolate, right? And if I'm being honest, that comes out, that's a space of pride because you're not allowing God to be God. You need to allow God to step in and redirect our hearts. To protect our hearts, we have to allow God to be God. We have to allow him to redirect our focus. This is where I kind of want to divert a little bit and go to our second point, which is be active. I know y'all just like, what are you talking about, bro? I just went to the gym this morning, right? Like, bro, I was just on the couch eating potato chips. I ain't really trying to do all that activity, my brother. I ain't trying to do all that. And let me say it to you like this, right? Just so we can have a space of understanding of one another. I was supposed to make this video yesterday, right? And I didn't make the video. I was just like, man, God doesn't really want me to make this video right now. And I didn't understand why. But before I came here to record, he kind of hit me upside the head with something. And that was, after I read my devotion, is about our Christian walk. I'm just like, all right, cool. We be walking. I be walking. We be walking. She be walking. Everybody be walking it out. Walk it out. I'm sorry. But within our Christian walk, when you're walking with Christ, your focus is on him. And for a lot of us, it's like, okay, what's your point? When we're active, we cannot have an idle mind. Idleness breeds confusion. Because guess what? For a lot of us, it's like, well, when you get in a real quiet space, which is why I brought up self-isolation before. When we get into the quiet space, it's just like start getting our own head. We start hearing a whole lot of head chatter, a whole lot of what ifs, what could have been, how this should have gone, all this burning energy on what? You can't do anything by just sitting there essentially daydreaming about things that you wish you could have, or things that you would have, or stuff that you could have. All of that stuff is a waste of time. But when you're walking, especially when you're on your walk with Christ, you're focused on a goal, and that goal is Jesus. And when you're focused on Jesus, guess what? You're not really looking at what could have, should have, and needs to be, because God is being himself. You're allowing Christ to prevail over all of your things. And so that's a really big thing for me, right? Is that when you're in a space of walking with Christ, you don't have time to be idle. And if you see my dog in the back, that's because he sat down. I think he's sleeping. Yeah, he's sleeping. being active, right? Because I'm gonna be honest with you. For a lot of us, especially me, right? When I go through things, it's really a struggle for me sometimes to give it over to God, right? It's a struggle for me to be like, hey, God, this is what I'm going through. I need you to step in, right? For me, it's more like I'm going to figure it out. I don't want to ask for help. I don't want to call nobody. I don't want to talk to nobody until I figure out what's going on and I have a solution. But then it always brings me back to, verses that talk about, it brings me back to verses where we talk about things like, where it's like 2 Corinthians 12:9, where it says, and he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you. My strength is made perfect in weakness. Right? Therefore, most gladly, I would rather boast in my infirmities that the power of Christ may rest upon me. And so for me, I'm just like, man, OG, I got it figured out. I only need your help for real. But in reality, we all need to run to Christ. And I think that's our biggest issue, is that there's not a lot of us that truly just run to Christ when things get heavy. We always try to self-isolate and get in our own heads, and not just with getting in our own heads, but when we have an idle mind, we allow things to invade us and our thought process. And that's a problem. Like, that's a legitimate problem. And it doesn't allow for us to be where God needs us to be. And I'm gonna even add in another verse just because a brother gonna bring Bible into it. It ain't just a conversation. This is the book. You feel me? 2 Thessalonians 3:11. For we hear that some among you walk in idleness, not busy of work, but busybodies. And because of that, that always brings me back to the whole like overthinking thing, where people be like, just be overthinking. And it's like, why? And I know it's like easier said than done of like getting rid of the habit of overthinking, but it's like it serves you no purpose. All you're doing is making your life more miserable, especially spiritually, than it has to be, because you're focused so much on a scenario that's either already passed or has not even came to fruition. What are we thinking about? And because of that, we have to get to a space to where we're giving our minds and our goals over to God so that he can cleanse it and direct it to where we need to be going. And that's my little 10 cents on that little piece. You feel me? That brings me to number 3, man. And I feel like it's really something I mentioned in the first part, in the first one, I guess the first one of today, which is prioritizing God. Like, Joshua, obviously we supposed to prioritize God. It's obvious, that's really what it sounds like. It was just like, duh, dude, come on, man. More like a Jimmy, we supposed to prioritize God. Back in 1776, I prioritized Jesus, and I'll be cracking jokes, but I don't think we understand what that means to prioritize God. And that kind of brings me to a point that I don't want to get too heavily into, because that's another topic in itself, and I'm not trying to really divert heavily off topic today. But if the God want to do it, God gonna do it, right? And that's sacrificing. We've reached a point in society where it's like, I gotta gain this. If he not 6 foot, if she not 5'2", if he ain't got no money, if she can't cook, I don't want her. Question is, what are you willing to sacrifice to ensure that a relationship works? What are you willing to lose to ensure that the relationship works properly? Because last time that I checked, Jesus Christ laid his life on the line for all of us to ensure that his relationship with us was solidified. Last time that I checked, when the nights got cold, the only person that was comforting you and me was the Holy Spirit. Well, I remember last time that I checked, when things got tough, the only person that I could call on in the midnight hours was Jesus Christ. And you mean to tell me the only thing that you can focus on is a game? But you can't prioritize losing things in order to get closer to God. Make it make sense. And I ain't trying to get mad.
I started thinking to myself,
I promise you I'm not trying to get mad. And I think the thing that just really drives me probably the most up the wall, especially with myself in a lot of instances, is that we rather focus on the storms than the one that quiets them. And that drives me nuts. Because Christ has already prevailed over everything. Nothing new is under the sun. It's already written in Ecclesiastes. But only thing that we need to do is give it over to God. And I'm going to say it to you like this. I'm never going to sell you no wooden nickels. It's harder. And it's so much harder than it is said. It is so much harder to do than it is to say it. But the first step is just to try. If you don't have a prayer closet, create a space of privacy for you and God. If you don't have a space where you can just get along, go sit in your car. If you don't have a car, go sit outside in the yard. Regardless, have a private space for you and God so that you can give him over everything. Give him over your idle mind so that he may fill it with goals and things that will provide more for the kingdom. Allow him to sit down in the spaces in which you struggle the most. When you're struggling in a relationship, like, man, this girl keep tripping, man, this boy keep tripping. I'm so tired of being hurt by this man. I'm so tired of my child's father not doing what he needs to do. I'm so tired of my child's mother making life extra hard. I'm so tired of my mom. I'm so tired of my grandmama. I'm so tired of my grandchildren. All of these different things, hand it over to God. That's how this whole thing works. Handling your emotions means you're passing it up to God. It's not just a moment where you're talking with God when things are going good. You don't come to God when things are just bad. You come to God with everything. And when you're prioritizing Jesus Christ over everything else, guess what? He will mark your steps, what kills idleness. When you're walking and prioritizing with Jesus Christ, guess what? When your mind is idle, he will capture that and focus you on a path that he needs you to go on. When you're prioritizing Jesus Christ, guess what? When those days when you're in your feelings because you hurt because somebody hurt you, he will reform your heart so that you know how to protect yourself, so that when other people come into your path that are also hurt, you can provide them with the word that he has called us to read so that we can know how to protect them too. So they know how to protect themselves. That's what Christ has called us to do. That's how we handle our emotions. It's by giving them up to Christ. We can't do it on our own. If God meant for us to be self-isolated and by ourselves and handle it by ourselves, after Adam, he would have made no more. If he wanted us to be by ourselves, he wouldn't have made a bird in the sky. He wouldn't have made lizards that walk around. He wouldn't have made the cockroaches that got on the Noah's boat. He wouldn't have done any of that. But God did not intend for us to handle things alone. And until we're able to handle our emotions in the way that Christ has set, which means that we're giving it to him, he is our fortification, he is our rock. Until we're able to truly give it over to him, them friends that you want, you're not going to get them. Because you don't know how to handle yourself. So you won't know how to handle them. That wife that you keep asking God for, he's not going to hand it over because you're not responsible enough with your own heart. Them kids that you keep asking God for, right? He's not going to give them to you, but guess what? You so in your head that you're not even going to be able to figure out what your children need. You're just sitting there out of like, well, maybe if. No. You so worried about getting hurt again that you won't allow God to repair you because you keep trying to look on to the next thing to latch on to. Let go and let God be himself. And I ain't mean to get too hyped. I get excited sometimes. And I think the thing that really just like why this, and I think the reason why this matters so much to me personally, it's because I've been going through this struggle myself, right? Where I don't want to give God the stuff in which I know he needs in order to be himself. I don't want to give him my problems, right? Because I don't want to feel like a burden. I don't want to give him my problems because I can figure it out on my own. God, I know you got 8 billion other kids to worry about. Why you worry about me? I got me. You good. But the whole time, all God wants to do is ensure that we're in a space to where we need to be. And the only way that we can get to that space is by prioritizing him. How do you protect your heart? Prioritize God so that when he reforms your heart and the actions in which you're going forth and doing, you'll know how to protect those around you. You'll know how to pass on healthiness to those around you. You'll know how to bring more light to the church. You'll know how to do the things in which God has asked you to do. Same thing for idleness, right? If you're walking the walk that Christ has called us to walk by prioritizing him and focusing on him instead of the people on your outside, you will know where you need to be moving. Ain't no question about that. Ain't a doubt in my mind, right? And so I'm gonna say it to you like this, and I really like the way that cause I wrote it down. I ain't gonna cap. When we have our days and our struggles, we need not to allow our emotions to be our focus. Because when our emotions are our focus, it makes us focus on our storms and not the one who quiets them. That's how we handle our emotions. And obviously, this is far more in depth than a 20-minute video. Actually, I don't know how long this video is. But I do know that through anything, if we're prioritizing Christ in our relationships, our friendships, our jobs, our daily walk, if we prioritize Him, things get so much more clear, so much easier. And I'm gonna end it on this because I don't believe I'm dragging. And that I pray that you allow God to reform your heart from hurt. And that does not mean jumping into a new relationship saying that I love God, so God gonna be all up in this. But allowing God to heal you so that whenever He puts you in a new space or not, you will be content in Christ. And I pray that when you're in your own head, quietly in your room, whining and crying and asking God for help, that you truly give it over and not just seek temporary comfort in God, but find permanent comfort in whatever you're going through so that He can reform it and set you on your path. That's all I got for y'all, man. Welcome to Bible Bootcamp. You dig? Also, y'all, listen, peep the Street Preacher shirt. Cop it, link in the description. You feel it? I'm sorry, I had to do it, y'all. I do like the shirt. And if y'all want a Crown of Champs hat, link is also in the description, man. God bless y'all. I love y'all. And I ain't gonna cap. If this is up on a podcast somewhere, you feel me? I might just like this is a podcast spot, low key. I ain't gonna cap. You dig? But yo, for real. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. And I'm gonna catch y'all on the flip for real. Y'all be blessed.
D&D my telephone. I like to be drama free. Can't just live off bread alone. Lucy try to pop at me.